And that's why I think people think baseball's so easy, because to play basketball you need to be tall. Maybe Steph Curry doesn't need, but I mean, baseball you got to be so tall. Football you got to be big, But in baseball you think I can stand there and swing a bat.
That was San Francisco Giants VP of Business Operations, Mario Alioto. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. Every week on the podcast, we feature sports fans, writers, photographers, bartenders, journalists, and other San Franciscans talking about living, working, and doing their thing here. It's a way to get to know your neighbors. Welcome to episode 28, part 2. In part 1, Mario shared stories from his time at Candlestick Park. In this podcast, he talks about moving the team north to the south of Market area, where they've hosted 4 different World Series, and where Matt Cain threw the only perfect game in Giants history. This podcast is part of a series of podcasts we're doing over the course of the baseball season, as the Giants celebrate 60 years in San Francisco. In case you missed it, please go back and listen to episode 25 with Josh Keppel. Here's Mario.
This ballpark we're in our 19th season here, and when the ballpark was built back in 2000, which was, again, it was so exciting to be part of that team to help build this ballpark. We did a lot of surveys back then as to what fans were looking for in a new ballpark, and what we found out more that was a surprise is fans want to come to they come to the ballpark to get away from all that. It's to have a respite from the everyday life of and so if it's in this ballpark, there's not a lot of. I mean, there is technology, but in things that are relevant to what fans are looking for. And,
that add to the experience.
Because you want to keep the authenticity of what this game's about, and now I will say, and I'm guilty of it too. You sit and watch a game, and I'm checking my messages, checking my emails, and we all do that.
Sure.
But there's something about this game for those of us who love it, who have been around it for a long time. It may be a business to us, but there's a beauty to this game that you have to appreciate. At the time, back in the 70s and 80s, I mean, we lost 4 elections to have it built publicly at the time. And when Peter McGowan and Larry Baer and the ownership group purchased the team in 92, we were at Candlestick Park from 93 through 99. And at the time, it was, this is our ballpark, so rather than trashing it, let's make it as best as we can. So we changed all the food. We added some new amenities that made that experience as good as we can. But Peter and Larry all along said that the real goal is to get a ballpark down within the city. And I remember this site where we're sitting on. When I was a kid, I used to ride my bike through here, and there used to be warehouses. Mm-hmm. But you're right along the water here. But I think what's happened, if you remember back in the 70s, I'm not sure if you were born yet, but back in the 70s, the trend then was to go out where there's a lot of land, plop down a stadium surrounded by parking, and have baseball and football have a dual stadium. But the trend now is bring them into the cities, make the ballpark smaller, make it more intimate. It's kind of a modern version of Wrigley Field. Yeah. And I think it's really worked for us. I mean, there's no better feeling that before a game here, watching fans walk down 3rd Street from the financial district, watching the ferries dock out in right field and fans coming off of there. The train station is a block away from here. It's a social event. This is the city's gathering place where people come together. But I think the trend now is small, scarce, intimate, and rather than have 60,000 seats like Candlestick, we have 41,000, and every seat's a good seat, and that's kind of I think that's what you're seeing. That's what Fenway Park is all about. What's Wrigley Field's about, and that's the new trend in sports is keep it small and intimate, and make the scene around the ballpark, whether it's restaurants and bars or parks, part of that experience, not just what's happening on the field.
And that's happened in this area, outside of the ballpark.
Well, what's interesting is I remember this area when there was nothing here but the ballpark,
right?
And now you look at it, and it's a neighborhood. A neighborhood is developed, and I remember when years ago when Safeway came in, I said, "God, now it's a neighborhood."
Yeah,
so people live here, and it's again as you look beyond McCovey Cove out the right field, our parking lot is going to be developed into our next new neighborhood.
That's next, yeah.
And that's one thing I'll say about this ballpark, that whenever I bring the guests or tours, I always, instead of going on the field, I go to the highest part of the ballpark. So go to the upper deck and look at the view, because you're not going to see that anywhere else in a baseball park. And and to look across to Oakland and just, I remember when Bonds was here playing and all those great memories we had. I mean, the amount of yachts and kayaks and sailboats out in right field. I mean, those are beauty shots at this ballpark, and it's only in San Francisco. It's interesting when you talk about Bonds and hitting home runs. I remember when we first opened the ballpark, we had the Portuguese water dogs out there because we realized that baseballs float. And we worked with Don Novello, Guido Sarducci, and we did a program where the dogs would be on little boats, and when there was a home run ball during batting practice, the dogs would jump off the boats and get and retrieve the balls. So a lot of those fun things. And I think, and as I mentioned to you earlier, is the one thing that Peter McGowan said to me when we first started working, and he says this to a lot of folks, is, have fun, be entrepreneurial, be creative, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. And, if this is more than just the game that's happening between the white lines on the field, if we were just relying on fanatic baseball fans, we wouldn't have enough fans. I mean, there's a casual fan that's looking for something to do, to be casual, to come to an experience and to do things with your kids or your friends. So we want the team to win every year. I hope we win the World Series every single game. It makes my job easier. But this is more than the game. I mean, the game is a big part of it. The fans, the players are really the focal point. But some fans come for different reasons. Some are just trying to get away from their personal problems. They just want 3 hours to sit in the sun and look at the grass and have a hot dog, and a beer. And I think we need to remember that in our business, is that, every fan comes here with a story. And sometimes we know those stories, sometimes we don't. But you can't assume that everyone is just looking for the same thing.
Yeah.
So, which is why this ballpark just seems to work. Well, 2010 was your first time is always the best, and that was a magical season for a lot of reasons. And it's one of those years where, as the seasons, if I remember correctly, beginning of August, we were quite a ways out of first place, but the team started to gel, and you could just sense that something special was happening. And it was just one of those years, and it's hard to from a fan's perspective to think through, but think of all the characters from that team and how we got players in the middle of the year, and it just started to happen, and it's almost like it was destined to happen. You just had that feeling as you got into September that this is the year, it's going to happen, and that moment in Texas when we won was pretty special. And as I mentioned to you earlier when we were walking before the interview, is I was lucky enough for 2 of my sons were bat boys back then, and one of them was in Texas for that game. And I remember after the game was over, I thought, oh my God, I've been with the team for, at that time, 30-something years. I can't even get in the locker room, and my son is in there. He gets to enjoy this moment that we've all been waiting for. But it's a special thing we still talk about, and but there's nothing like winning the World Series. And God, who ever would have thought we would have won, every other year? So the even year thing is something special, and every year is exciting. But 2010 was really, in that moment of, we talk so much on the marketing side of sports and here with the Giants that, the thing about baseball, I think maybe more so than other sports, it's a generational thing. I mean, I grew up near Candlestick Park. I remember going to the games with my grandfather. He was a season ticket holder when they had wooden seats at Candlestick. So it was, back in the late 60s. And, it's a game you pass on to people. Mm-hmm. So I remember back then in 2010, as well as 2012, my mom, who's still alive and healthy as can be and still likes to come to ball games, watching that game with my other kids and my daughter and my wife, how special that was, to enjoy that together. But at the time, for me, and my kids still talk about this, is we did a thing in the ballpark as part of the scoreboard entertainment called the fist pump. And when we needed to get the crowd roaring, we play the fist pump song from New Jersey. Jersey Shores, and the whole place would go nuts. Well, one time they show this older woman with gray hair on the board doing a fist pump, and she was in her 80s. They didn't know that was my mom, and so and the players would always give my son, hell in the dugout. Hey, your grandmother's is on the board again. But so it was fun for us, at least in our family, in a small way. She was part of the story of that year, and the photos and just remembering all that, enjoying that together that's what baseball's about. I do have seats in the club level, but I can't really sit in a seat that long, and I don't cheer. I remember and I know this is going to sound odd, but I know it's dead honest. In 2010, when we won the World Series and we were in Texas, it was a great feeling, but I didn't cheer. I just kind of stood there, and I think it's because in my formative years, if you will, when I was a kid, when I was a bat boy, I was always a bat boy in the visiting side.
Right.
So when the Giants were scoring, I'd be in the dugout happy, but I could never cheer.
Couldn't show it.
And I never showed it. And I swear that's why now people, I remember people, if you watch a game with me, I never stand up. I don't cheer. I smile. I cheer inside, but I don't cheer. So it's just it's kind of odd. But I watch I'm really into what's going on, but I can't sit for more than I think I'm just kind of type A. I'm constantly looking more what the fans are doing, what's going on. I'm looking at things that other people aren't looking at. There's something cool about an empty ballpark. And I used to do this at Candlestick Park all the time. I just go out there and just look in 60,000 empty seats. And you start thinking about the moments that took place in that play in here. So here, I'll think about the night that, Bonds hit 756, or the night that when it was pouring rain and we won the pennant here when Marco Scudero was at, there's certain things that happen, and it all happened right here. Yeah. And it's in a way, in your own voice, in your own mind, you can hear the cheers. But you look around and you're sitting here by yourself, and there's something cool about. I'm not sure if the Coliseum in Rome is the same feeling, but I think when you're in an empty venue like this where people gather for events, there's something really cool about it. And I think sometimes, keeping in mind that the ballpark opened in 2000 and here we are in 2018, there's a lot that's happened here over the years, from All-Star games to to home run chases to World Series games.
4 different World Series.
We haven't won at home
now.
yet. But right. Even 2002. Now that we won 3 World Series, the Anaheim Angels and the Rally Monkey doesn't bug us as much.
Right.
But you think about all those things that have happened. There's been a lot of time has gone by, and hopefully with the things that we've done as an organization and the moments that have taken place here, have enhanced someone's time in life a little bit and create some memories that 20 years from now someone else will be talking about. Remember that. Maybe if something happens important tonight, you may 20 years from now look back and say, I remember that Tuesday night went to that Nationals game, and you remember when we saw whatever. That can happen. And
Matt Cain's perfect game was a Tuesday.
That's right.
In June, random.
That's right. And so you never know what's going to happen. So that's the best thing about this business. It's unpredictable. It's a story that will it's being told as we game by game, and by the end of the season we'll see how it all plays out.
Music for the podcast is by Otis McDonald, a.k.a. Joe Big Ale. Film photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. Please follow Storied San Francisco on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you like what you're hearing, please let your friends know. All the episodes and Michelle's photos of storytellers are up on our website, storiedsf.com. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show. You can reach us by email at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks a lot for listening. Check back next week when we'll hear stories from SF State Journalism Professor Venice Wagner.